Hi, I'm your host, Ricky Booker. Welcome back to a brand new season in the Kitchen with the Breakfast Brothers.
It's time to get on up and whip it up with them Breakfast Brothers. It's time to get on up and whip it up with them Breakfast Brothers. Yeah, it's time to get on up and stir it up. It's time to get on up, stir it up and whip it up. Yeah, it's time to get on up.
Welcome back to a brand new season in the Kitchen with the Breakfast Brothers. I'm your host, Ricky Booker. There are so many things in the world that brings us together. Good food, little conversation does it every time. And in the Kitchen with the Breakfast Brothers, we love feeding your soul. Today's guest, he has written and performed with Jay-Z, Nas, Pusha T, Rick Ross, and most notably, his first cousin, Kanye West, just to name a few. Let's give a warm welcome for the world-famous Tony Williams. What's going on? You doing all right?
I'm doing wonderful. Happy New Year,
Man, Happy New Year as well, man. You know, it's an honor. I'm just gonna give you your flowers, brother. Be sitting next to you. Some of the things that you've done and some of the people that you worked with, but we're gonna get into that.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Outside of music, I have an intimate relationship with not only food, but very good food. So if it's gonna be some good food we're talking about,
Here we go. He say he
I'm
can
all
cook.
in.
We're gonna talk about good food. We're gonna eat some good food.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about how he cooked too. I know you can produce and write.
Okay.
But cooking, we're gonna talk about that. But
Okay.
the first thing we're gonna do, I do a little contest, a game.
Okay.
If you notice, we got the famous brothers wall. We the Breakfast Brothers, and we got brothers here. You got 30 seconds to name brothers, whether they're professional athletes. Even if you want to go to the musical background, they have to be brothers. You got 30 seconds to do that. Now.
keep going. Bardin and Maurice White, Kiki Barber, football players, Barber brothers.
Tiki Barber. Rondé Barber.
Rondé Barber.
Okay.
Wow. Brothers.
Just some musical ones. I know you know some musical ones.
Oh, wow. I wish I had time to...
Casey and JoJo, I'm going to give you that.
Casey and Joe, they brothers?
Yeah, they brothers.
I didn't know they was brothers.
Yeah. They brothers.
Wow. Brothers. The ones that was all,
Time. Man, come on, man.
Doug,
Okay, that's all right. I didn't get to cue you on that. Normally, you get cued on that, so you didn't get none of your publishers didn't get none of that. So
Yeah, okay.
that was a surprise.
Right. Yeah, that was a surprise one on me.
But man, I want to get started because I'm, you know what they say, I'm real excited about this one.
Okay.
I want to go all the way back in the beginning because, you know, I'm an Oklahoma City boy. I was born and raised.
Okay, so we about to talk about Lil Tony.
Yeah, we're talking about little Tony Williams and how it began. Let's talk a little bit about that.
How it began.
Music, instruments.
Oh, okay, music. So let's see. My parents were musical. They both, ironically, coming up, their first instruments I think was saxophone. School band and things of that nature. So when I was 8 years old, I was handed a saxophone. So that was my first instrument. However, there was always music in the house. My mom was a church pianist. My dad sang in church, of course, probably far better singer than I. But my whole family, my grandmother played piano. My aunt, who came up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, actually was a director of a very big urban youth choir that I would say would be tantamount to the 1970s version of God's Property.
Okay.
In that choir was the Wilson Brothers that later became the Gap Band. Alfred Woodard was in that choir. But it was just an urban teen choir that was, like I said, pretty much the same as the 70s version of God's Property. So there was always, and so my cousins, the whole family, my aunts, there was always music. There was always a piano and an organ in everybody's house for all my relatives'
couldn't get away with.
So there was just, of course, and yes, and just like all the rest of us, like artists, we all learned it in church. It was all about being in church. So, so that's how it started. I like to preface these conversations pre-internet and post-internet. Why? Because before the internet, the world was a much larger place. We weren't connected. So me having grown up in Oklahoma City, you never saw up close and personal celebrities or people that actually were stars, that were actually recording stars. So because of that, you never aspired to be a professional musician. You only aspire to be those things that you can touch, those things that you can see. You may have had a doctor in your neighborhood and you can say, oh, I can do that because you saw that thing. So there were very limited options of what you saw in your community because of things the spaces we were allowed to be in back in that time. So I never thought that it would be a possibility until there were, I had some friends that I grew up with that whose parents were professional musicians. And then as time, when they graduated from high school, they actually did get a record deal. So those were the first people that were in my community that I could see, that was a model, and I could say, that's what I want to do. I can do that.
What the first group that I known from Oklahoma City that, you're right, I'm from Oklahoma City, so you're right about we didn't have someone you can touch, feel, and see in your communities in Oklahoma City. So first one around my era that I thought was Color Me Bad from Oklahoma City, Brian, those guys.
So interesting story. The songs that they recorded to submit to giant records that they got their record deal with, I wrote. So at my core, at my center, I am a writer, arranger, producer. But yes, so there was a group prior to them that, and the name of that group was Colorblind.
Oh, okay.
And half of the guys were from Oklahoma City and the other half was from Tulsa. And so as years went by and their record situation with Capitol Records dissolved, there was a band split. And at that time, I had moved to Los Angeles, and I was in college out in Los Angeles. And half of the band actually relocated to Los Angeles to pursue another record deal. Well, that half of the band didn't have a lead singer. And so because of experience of me back during their day, I would come to their rehearsals and just be a fly on the wall because I was just enamored at the fact that they had put this band together. They were writing their own songs. It was very colorful. They were, dressing the part, looking and just, turning into superstars in front of my eyes. And I was very attracted to that. So I just wanted to be a fly on the wall and just suck it in and absorb it. But when I'd be at the rehearsal, I'd be in the corner, and as they would be performing the songs, I'd be in the corner singing harmonies, right? So they were like, oh, we didn't know he could sing. So years later, when they needed another vocalist, and they moved to L.A., and I was the first phone call. They were like, band broke up. We need to put the band back together. We need a singer. You want to do it? And so that was my entree into the game.
So when you started singing backup, when was the point?
I wasn't singing backup. I was up front.
Okay.
I was the lead singer of the group.
Group. Okay.
First band I'd ever been. I was super green, still finding my voice. But yeah, that was the entree, and that's where it started.
Okay. When you started writing, is it with this band or was it prior to that?
That's very good question. Of course, I was the new kid on the block. I was very green, but however, prior to moving to Los Angeles, I was actually, at that time, I was in fashion school. I was going to a school called the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. It's in Los Angeles. But prior to that, my first 2 years, I was at the University of Oklahoma, and I was in the journalism school. So like I said, at my center, I'm a writer.
Right.
So, and that was one of the biggest things that what drew me to it. And I felt like I could really contribute. But of course, I was the new kid, so of course they didn't care. They'd already had a record deal. Yeah. So they weren't listening to what I was talking about or were even willing to give me a chance as a writer. However, there was another guy in the band, as they reconstituted the band and started searching for new members to complete it again. There was a guy named Ron Spearman. And he and I are writing partners to this day. And for many years, and this took place after this particular unit dissolved, but for several years, he was a musician, utility musician, played bass, keys, and guitar, and did vocals with P-Funk. So he is a P-Funk all-star. So there were a few people out of this group that actually are still currently doing relevant music. The other one that was in that band is a guy by the name of Chucky Booker. Chucky Booker produced all the songs with True and a whole bunch of others.
LA too.
And also LA guy, and he's a respected artist in his own right. but Chucky was in that band as well. So, 3 people that are still very much doing relevant music.
Now I know I'm getting ahead
And
of
we're
myself.
talking
But
35 years ago. A few years after my LA experience, I eventually moved back to Oklahoma City. And that's where I started forming my own bands. In fact, one of your relatives was in that first band that I formed.
One of the twins.
Yeah, exactly. So we were, yeah. And so, and then after that evolved, I eventually relocated to Dallas-Fort Worth. And very interesting story, because I had a situation with that particular band where there was the story, we've heard so many versions of the stories, but those band breakups. But I felt that it was such a promising situation that it was literally almost a heartbreaking experience that I kind of didn't want to be involved with music for a couple of years. And when I say didn't want to be involved, I mean from 1990 to 1992, I never heard the radio, never watched Donnie Simpson on BET videos, nothing, never played a record, anything. I was just kind of shut off to music. And that was between 90 and 92. And that was the time that I relocated to Dallas-Fort Worth. And then the bug hit me again, like after 2 years. When you do this, when it's in your system, you can't stay away. And so I ended up putting an ad in the Dallas Observer on the back page. It was like they used to have musician classifiers on the back. You could buy drums or instruments anyway, the ad went something like new singer, new musician in town. I'm looking for a band. These are my influences. And of course I grew up, that was the funk era. So my influence I listed were like great funk bands. It was like, it was the Gap Band, the Barcades, Confunction, all these different groups. Like, this is my influences. And the phone started ringing. This is good. I'm about to get back in, right? But there were no funk bands they called. And this was during the time where Dallas was a hotbed, specifically down in Deep Ellum, where we were, there was a big uprising in alternative rock bands. And those were the people that started calling me. And so I just answered the phone, and I'm like, well, I just want to sing. I just want to make music. And so I started performing with some alt-rock groups. But what it was the greatest thing that came out of that is because I started to study different types of music and understanding how to fuse a soul vocal on top of a rock backbeat, and started experimenting. And I became very experimental, and I started developing a style. Now, we talked about Kanye during this time. So Kanye's about 12 or 13 at this point. And he's listening to the recordings I'm making and not necessarily expressing it, but he's digesting it the whole time. And he's listening and paying attention, but I'm not knowing.
Right. A sponge.
He's being a sponge. And so years later, fast forward several years, College Dropout. And that's a whole nother story. I almost didn't get on College Dropout.
I'm finna say, let's hold that.
Okay.
We're going to talk more. Man, when it comes to music, other than food, I can talk.
But I said that to say that he was a fan of mine from a young teen, because I was his upper, and he just thought, man, my cousin is dope. He's a great writer. His style is different. It's catchy. I like it. He's different. And he was
So you influenced the title?
I influenced him.
Okay.
And he told me several years later, he said, it's because of you that I listen to really cool music.
We're going to talk more at the sit down when you're eating some breakfast, brothers. But in time being, we're going to go back and see what Luscious has going on.
It's your girl, Luscious Barbie. I'm out here at Clyde Warren Park. We are officially here Thursday through Sunday. All you got to do is go to www.breakfastbrothers.com. You can even order ahead of time and come pick up your food. Until next time, let's go.
All right, we're here at the sit down with the world famous Tony Williams. And we're going to get right into it, man, because, we had started, I mentioned early on about Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
But we didn't talk about the family's historic roots when they come to the NAACP. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I know some background there.
Yes, my family played a very important role. We were fortunate in Oklahoma City to have an outstanding leadership period in the community. One specifically was was a lady that was the chairman or whatever, the chairperson of the local chapter of the NCAA in NAACP.
I always mess that up all the time because it's too many A's. We get it.
NAACP. But her name was Clara Luper.
Man, I remember Clara Luper because I'm from Oklahoma. I used to hear her on the radio.
But not only was she just the president of the local chapter of the NAACP, but she was a school teacher and she touched thousands and thousands of young lives. But she was also, just a big figurehead in the community. Was definitely had a hand in my upbringing. So my family's roots, in the late 60s, I want to say 68, 69, I was no, actually, it must have been, I'm sorry,
We talking
58, 59.
about. I'm gonna say we're talking about some history, so you got to think about it.
Yeah, but it was during the civil rights. Anyway, the first civil rights sit-in movement, and one of the most historical one. I think they were credited with the biggest, and the first one was in one of the Carolinas, but I think there was a dispute that's supposed to be getting clarified, but I think the first one was actually in Oklahoma City, or the first successful one. But it was organized by Clara Luper, and what the sit-ins was a protest where they took kids and they took them to a deli where they served food where blacks were not allowed to eat inside, and sit at the counter and protest until they were served. I think they were inspired by it. There was a local trip, an excursion that Miss Luper had taken a group of young preteens to New York City, and they noticed that black people had the different liberties, saw them being able to go freely into restaurants and delis in place and sit down with no problem, and that inspired them to start the protest once they got back to Oklahoma. And so, just by virtue of the fact that there weren't, first of all, coming up during a time where a lot of households didn't even have a father in the house. They needed men that would drive the kids to the actual sit-in. So my father, my family, being that my grandfather was in the house, and of course he drove a Cadillac. So he was the first person to ask if he would lead the parade of kids. And there was original, I don't know, it was 15, it was an original number. And they drove the kids, and this happened though a course of some consecutive weekends. But the children sat at the counter and refused to leave. And this was during the height of the civil rights, during Dr. King's height. And this was the Oklahoma City, and Miss Luper was partnered and walked in many marches with Dr. King. She was very connected to him. But for the Oklahoma City marches, my grandfather, I said not the marches, the sit-ins, our grandfather drove the lead car to the parade of cars leading to what was specifically Cat's Deli in downtown Oklahoma City, where the first sit-ins were performed. Kanye, on College Dropout, he has a song called Never Let Me Down, where he raps about it. And I think if I can remember the verse, went something like, I get down for my grandfather. He took my mama, made her sit at that seat where white folks didn't want her to eat. And at the tender age of 7, she was arrested for the city. And with that in my blood, I was born to be different.
Wow.
And I think back on things like Miss Luper and my grandfather. And if you go to the NAACP headquarters in Oklahoma, there's a granite monument. All the civil rights leaders from Martin Luther King to Malcolm X to Thurgood Marshall to Blum, the list goes on. But my grandfather and my father, being an original sit-inner, are etched in that granite.
Wow.
And there's actually bronze statues being created. There's going to be a new monument in downtown Oklahoma City, where the original Cat's grocery store was, and it's going to be a life-size reenactment in bronze of that city with the original 13 kids. And that's slated to be unveiled, I think, this summer coming up.
I'm gonna make sure I be there for that.
Yeah,
I want to see that.
It's a big deal. It's a really, I'm
That is a
proud
big
to be
deal.
of that heritage.
Yeah, and I'm curious to say you
lineage.
part of that whole history point And what people don't understand, sometimes when your background and your bloodline comes in it, sometimes God make it to a point where that's the reason why you're so spiritual tone when it comes to the soul of the music, man. It is to be attached to something like that. You know, I'm going off to the left a little bit. You know, when they had the Oklahoma City bombing, my sister was in there, and she was one of the 168 people to lose their lives that day in 1995. But what I tell my kids, and I tell my grandkids, it's crazy to say, but they part of history forever and ever and ever. And my sister's name was Cassandra Booker, and she's part of that history, which is a monumental point that's bad, but it's crazy to say it's good because we're attached to that forever. I don't know how long, but my grandkids' kids is a part of that history.
Absolutely.
And for you to sit here and tell the historical part of your family, and I remember growing up, hearing that name Clara Luper over and over and over. She used to be all over the place. She was like serious. And to hear you tell that, and so the ability that you have is great. So, you know, we're gonna get to it because I know you want to eat too. We're gonna get to you order some food and getting your food, and then we're gonna get back to some of the things that we got to talk about.
Hey, how you doing today? I'm good. Good. Can I start you out with something to eat today?
You know, I looked over the menu and it was a tough one. But what I think jumped off the page to me was the lamb chops.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing on the menu. And that does come with our favorite cold style potatoes and a side of toast, okay?
Can I have them crispy?
You sure can.
All right.
You like. My name is Tia. If you need anything else, okay?
Here.
This ain't Burger King. He can't have whatever he
I
likes.
can. Yes, he can. We make everything fresh to order so we can make it how he wants it.
All right.
Well, time being, she's getting your food prepared, and I want to get back into it where, you know, I'm gonna get back to the music thing of you touring it worldwide. You know, you assisted your cousin Kanye, and then also the creation of Dondra. Let's talk a little bit about that. Donda.
Well, as you know, the original touring vocalist was a guy by the name of John Legend.
Yeah.
That was the very, very early days. In fact, excuse me, going back to the College Dropout album, you know, in which I was on, I want to say 5 songs on that album. But I almost didn't make it onto that album because he had already been in production for the album for several weeks. And it was down to the last 2 weeks. And I had asked him, you know, can I get on the album? You know, let me sing something. He was like, man, I just signed this new cat to my production company, and he's doing all the vocals on the album. His name is John Legend. Who is John Legend? So I was not supposed to be on the album until one Christmas. And it was our tradition to everybody comes to Oklahoma City, to my parents and my grandparents' house for the holidays. I had driven down from Dallas, Fort Worth, and by tradition, I was always the person elected to go pick Kanye and my aunt Donda up from the airport on Christmas Eve every year. And we had a tradition on our way home from the airport, whatever music we would work on, we had been working on currently, we'd share music. He'd play a song, I'd play a song. He'd play a song, I'd play a song, all the way to the house. And during this particular Christmas, he's playing songs from the new College Dropout. And so we're vibing to it, and he plays this song called Spaceship. And naturally, I just start riffing over the record. And he stopped it. He rewinded, of course, guess it was a CD. I almost said it was a cassette.
Yeah.
It may have been a cassette. But that's how long ago it was. But anyway, I started riffing over it, and he was like, that's what I want on this record. So next week, I want you to come. And so he's now inviting me to be on the record. And so there was only 2 weeks left of production. And in that 2 weeks, I ended up on 5 songs. But then he went out after that album, and he did the College Dropout tour, which was a college tour. And that consisted of him and a DJ and John Legend on piano. So I was not on that first tour.
Okay.
Fast forward, Late Registration, I was involved with production from day one on that album and did most of the vocals on Late Registration. So by now, John Legend is John Legend.
Right.
So he's gone.
Right.
So now he needs a tour.
I never knew that Kanye had him signed to his production. I never knew that till now.
Oh yeah, Kanye is the one that introduced John Legend to the world for the most part.
We got your food coming out. Lovely Tiara's trying to bring it out so you can get started. And then one thing I want to ask you too. I'm gonna let you go ahead and get your first couple bites.
Okay.
You go ahead.
I'm anxious.
Man, we eat it just like
All
at
about
home.
is your
Just like at home. Go ahead and I'm gonna give you your first bite. You tell me.
first bite. I don't know. And
See, there we go. The man that cooked, that know food. Tell me what you think.
lots of flavor, and actually cooked just right. This is wonderful.
You heard it straight from the famous Tony Williams.
Now, of course, I'm gonna pick it up with my finger.
No, you do your thing, man. We're gonna keep talking. It's like we sitting at home eating at the table. You're not gonna be proper at home.
Absolutely.
So I heard you say before in previous interviews that if you was cut, you'll bleed soul. Exactly what I would like to describe about your new album. Let's talk a little bit what inspired you, The Fish Without a Bicycle.
I wanted something intriguing and compelling that would be compelling enough for you to ask me and to be curious enough to peer into the album. Now, A Fish Without a Bicycle actually was a, many, many years ago, it's actually a pro-women's saying that actually the saying was a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle.
Oh.
It's an old saying.
Okay.
It's very rock oriented. It's a lot of guitar driven songs. So I was that as well. And so I'm a whole bunch of different things.
And you hear it in the music.
And
that's
you hear it in the music,
there's
but
two
it
things.
is one under one
Right.
arc. So also, I'm still releasing songs on the album. So there's going to be a deluxe version
Right.
of the album come out in March. And we will be in that deluxe version. We're dropping 5-6 more songs. And we're going to do a remix of the song Slide By, which had BJ the Chicago Kid on it. And now we've added to the remix along with BJ. I don't know if I can let the cat out of the bag yet. Okay.
You already did.
My favorite rap duo since Outkast coming out of Atlanta is featuring Earth Gang.
But Tony, man, I can sit here the rest of the day, night, and then the next day talking to you about music, man. I love what you've done for your career and things you've been attached to. But this new project, tell everybody how they can get it. Everybody that's into the music, they understand. Tell them how they can still get the project.
Well, it's A Fish Without a Bicycle, the world famous Tony Williams, A Fish Without a Bicycle. It's on every streaming platform, wherever you stream or purchase music. You can find me on hit my social media as world famous Tony Williams on all social media. But you can find the album anywhere. Hit my YouTube channel. There's videos for several songs from the album. And I'm as excited about doing videos as I am. You know,
Right.
I'm an undercover actor.
Yeah,
right?
you be on it.
I'm low-key an actor, director, producer, all that. So I love doing videos and visuals. So,
Man, Tony,
you know, explore my video page and you'll find it pretty interesting.
I appreciate you taking the time out, joining us on the show. It's been an honor sitting across from you, talking to you, listening to the history of you, your family, your background.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, the world famous Tony Williams. Join us each and every Saturday right here at 10:30 a.m. I'm your host, Ricky Booker.
Our guest today ordered the amazing Dream Lamb Chops. If you'd like to try one of these dishes on the episodes today, please visit us at one of our locations.
I know them diamonds help you glow when you